Hi everybody, Matt Wood here with MW Media. Welcome back. Thanks for watching, all that good stuff. Welcome to the first ever basics episode. What we're doing in these episodes is just essentially showing you guys the basic functionality of the software so that by the time you get to our more advanced tutorials, you kind of have an idea what the hell is going on. So, without further ado, let's get started. Today, we are talking about motion tracking, and we're just going to show you guys a basic overlook of the built-in camera tracker and motion tracker within After Effects. Here we go. We have this cool footage of this alleyway tunnel that we got, and we're just going to drag this into a new comp. Bammy wham. Hot diggity. There we are. Pretty cool stuff. Now, what we're going to end up doing is if you look over to your right here, you'll see this handy little tracker panel. In order to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to first duplicate our footage by hitting Command D or Control D, just to bring that up. And we're going to rename that. Name it Track, and we'll turn off the bottom one. Now, in our tracker panel, the first thing that we're going to want to do, and before you get started, FYI, just make sure that your composition settings and the settings of the file that you're tracking are the same. They have to be identical resolution, otherwise the tracker will give you an error. It has to be that video file's native resolution. And for the sake of rendering, and since this is just a quick thing, we're doing 720 today. Anyway, back on track. The next thing we're going to do is with our file selected, we're going to hit Track Camera, and you'll notice it'll start to analyze. And you're just going to give it a second while it does that there. Take a few minutes depending on your computer. Okay, so now that it is populated with track points, which you will see are now represented in 3D space as these little like crosses here. And when you hover over them, you will see that this target appears. What that is it is giving you a representation of where an object that you place will be in 3D space once it is linked to any of these. We want to create kind of a ground plane. So we're going to select, say, this marker here. Just click on it and hold down Shift. We'll select that one. And let's get that one and that one. And that way we have this kind of plane here. Once that is done, we're going to right-click and we're going to select Create Null and Camera. Now, what this does is it creates a 3D camera for us and immediately creates a track marker in the form of a null object. We can scale that up there just so we can kind of see. And you'll notice that our null object is now floating in 3D space. Pretty cool. Now, you might be asking me, Matt, that is so amazing. We created a small square that is not three-dimensional, but it does exist in a three-dimensional plane. That's so amazing, but we don't care, and that is not an effect. However, this is where stuff gets cool. For instance, let's create a text layer. We'll click on text, and we'll just go onto our shot here, and we'll just type in something. It's true. They do. There we go. And maybe we'll just like... make that so we can actually see it. And once again, not a whole lot going on. However, this is where stuff gets really fun. If we click on our text layer and we come over to our options toggle, and if you hit F4, that'll change between your transfer modes and track options to your other options for 3D and motion blur. So we'll just hit F4 and make sure that we're on this pane and turn our text into a 3D layer. Now you'll see that it is already reacting to our 3D camera. So you can see that it's actually following the motion and what have you. But we want it to do something a little bit more cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this down below our camera layer and choose our pick whip tool. And we're going to parent it to our track null. Now, anytime we, say, move our text back in 3D space, or we can kind of rotate it here so that it matches this tunnel a little better. And maybe we can scale it down just a little bit. That looks pretty good. And let's scooch it back in Z space just a little. All right, so that is pretty neato. We can see that we have this 3D text floating around. Now, that is the basic camera tracker. However, say we want to just like say project something onto the wall, this we will bring in this other shot from the same tunnel here. It's pretty cool. And now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on actually just tracking motion. So this would be, say, if you want to put, like, say, something on this wall, like some cool graffiti. Let's find some graffiti really quick. Hang on. Okay, so now what we're going to work on is projecting something onto this wall using a very basic tracking option, which is just the motion tracker. So instead of tracking the entire shot in 3D space, since we don't really need to have anything interacting with the camera three-dimensionally, we just need to project something onto this wall, we're going to choose the track motion option. Now to do this, we don't need to duplicate our layer like we did before. That way, if you're doing intense compositing, you can delete it later. But with this one, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new null object, and we're just going to hit enter and rename it. That'll be our track null. And I'm just going to make this yellow because I like having something bright and vibrant to work with. Now, what we're going to do is with this selected, we're going to choose track motion. And you'll notice that it pops up this tiny little track point. We also want to track scale and rotation. Now that we have these selected, you'll notice that when you click on it, it kind of zooms in, which is really neat. So we can actually choose, say, a couple of these points on the wall here and try and keep them a little bit away from each other. And that looks pretty cool. Yeah, right about there is looking pretty good. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come over and hit edit target, and we want to make sure that the null that we created is selected. And we're going to come over and click on this little play button, and what it's going to do is analyze the movement of those dots throughout the entire shot. And just let it do its thing, and it looks like it's tracking pretty good there. All right, now that this has loaded and it is tracked, if we zoom in, you will see that it is automatically keyframed a ton of position data for both of these markers, which is pretty cool. And if you want to, some of those data points can be individually parented. So what we're going to do is with that selected, we're going to hit apply. And it's going to ask you if you want to apply those dimensions to X and Z or X and Y. We're going to hit OK. And there we have it. Pretty cool. So now we'll notice that we once again have a null object floating in 3D space, but it's only hooked onto those points. So let's see, maybe we can put some cool graffiti on there. We got this cool graffiti texture here, Matthew. It's a pretty rad name. Not trying to, oversell it or nothing. We're going to switch the transfer mode to overlay and hit F4, turn it into a 3D layer. And what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of position it into our shot how we think it should look once it's done. So we'll just kind of rotate it here. Let's drop this down to half just to render a little faster. That's looking pretty good. And we'll just scooch this down and over. All right, now that we have this kind of positioned where we want it, the next step is you'll notice that it's just kind of bobbing around here. It's not really looking too intense. So with that selected, you're just going to parent it to your track null. And we hit play again. And there we go. It is tracked into 3D space, sort of, but only on a two-dimensional plane. This can also be done with other things like corner pinning and other options as well. But that's pretty much a straightforward setup to how the tracker works in concept. So thanks so much for watching this, you guys. If you have any other questions, let me know. If I missed anything, please feel free to drop a message or, alert me to that. And stick around for the next episode basic, where we talk about the very basics of green screen and keying in Keylight, which is built in to After Effects. So thanks again, you guys, and I'll see you next time.